Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our very special guest today on a very special topic, me and 90s Con. Yes, of course I was going to go to 90s Con. I am a lover of 90s nostalgia. And Nick Carter and AJ from the Backstreet Boys were there, so my dad was like, of course you're going to be there, aren't you? He'll never forget how I made my mom buy Nick Carter a birthday cake when I was 12. So let's get to the highs. And as always, not necessarily lows, but some suggestions on how to make 2023's 90s Con even bigger and better. So number one thing I loved about 90s Con was that it was very fan focused. In bigger markets like Los Angeles and New York City, I feel like conventions are very business driven. They want to promote the biggest that Marvel and Disney or what have you has to offer. And I feel like the fans kind of get lost in the jumble of the business aspect of everything. But at 90s Con, the fans were really the number one priority. It was like what people do, these 90s fans want to see, and 90s Con delivered. There were so many celebrity guests from that era for fans to do meet and greets with, have photo ops, get autographs, and that was awesome. It was crazy. You had the cast of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Boy Meets World, Full House, Family Matters. You had some boy bands. You had the cast, all the kids from Mrs. Doubtfire were there, the Lawrence brothers. It was, as Bob the Drag Queen says, it was wild. But as great as the autographs and the photo ops are, some people, like myself, we go to conventions to see all the merch. I love buying the beautiful, pop culture centric artwork. My living room is full of it. I am a big collector of t-shirts, of little tchotchkes, and sadly, there just wasn't enough of that for me. There was maybe 3 or 4 vendors that had art, that had stickers, magnets, patches, but other than that, there wasn't a lot of shopping that I could do, which left my bank account happy, but my heart very sad. In the future, I hope that 90s Con can get a lot more vendors on board, because I do want to walk away with more than just the conventions merch. I did buy a cool 90s Con binder, Trapper Keeper thing though, which was cool. But again, I want more art. I want something that maybe I can hang on my wall later when I get home. Some Matilda inspired artwork, or Mrs. Doubtfire, Sabrina, something like that. So more vendors in the future, definitely a must. But while there wasn't a lot of shopping to do, there were a few things that you could do, like photo ops. You could get slimed, which was very cool. I didn't do it though because I didn't want to watch. They had poncho things you could wear. I had my dog with me, and it's kind of like I didn't know if they were reusing the slime. It was kind of like, So I didn't do that, but I did take a picture on the big orange couch from SNICK. That it was so cute. They had the couch and they had this beautiful backdrop. 90s TV stacked up with the static playing. That was very cute. Another exhibit they had, a kind of photo op-y thing, was original outfits worn by the Spice Girls. And it was crazy to see because they were such tiny little ladies. You're like, oh my God, they're so petite. And I did like seeing that. But there could have been more. They could have definitely had more attractions, more photo ops. I mean, how many of us took very questionable, dare I say, ugly pictures when we were in school? Like, my mom definitely, Life Touch or whatever, owes my mom some money because they really had her buying the most ridiculous pictures of me. I would have loved to see some 90s classic school picture backdrops, that paint splatter that was really popular. Maybe the spring one where you're leaning up against a fake tree, things like that, so we could maybe recreate our elementary school pictures, get those printed, send those to our parents, be like, much apologies for the fugly child that I was. Here I am now. Some other photo op ideas. when NSYNC got their start on the Hollywood Walk of Fame after the Backstreet Boys, they had, well, not them, but somebody set up this really amazing NSYNC photo op exhibit at Hollywood and Highland. I wish the Backstreet Boys had done this. Anyways, you could be in the marionette box. Remember when NSYNC had the dolls? They had like their big famous covers from like Rolling Stone. They just had so many pictures you could do. But my favorite thing, the last stop in the NSYNC photo op tour, if you will, was a bedroom that was like covered in NSYNC posters and had all this old merchandise, and you could pose with this bedroom as if it was your own. And I think they didn't have to go all NSYNC out. I mean, Joey Fatone was there, but they did have Nick Carter and AJ. I think it would have been cool if they had this sort of boy band room explosion for people to take pictures, because there were so many women there and men. There were so many people there that were rocking Backstreet Boy and NSYNC merch that I think it would have been really cool to have that experience and go back in time and get those kind of photos. And plus, people were there with friends too. That would be really cute. On the flip side, there were also people rocking some very amazing goth alternative couture that was screaming Hot Topic 1999 realness. And on the flip side of that, I think they could have had a room, or maybe had Hot Topic get behind them and sponsor kind of like this throwback Hot Topic storefront where people that were into Korn and Limp Bizkit could have had their photos taken. Send it to their mom and remind them, remember when I made you go in that very loud, very spooky store to get me a Korn t-shirt. I think having those two kind of things would have been really cool. And then two more things they could have had. These would have been less photo op-y, but more for something to do, something to buy. Would have been a 90s snack bar. Shout out to the convention center for having their own little cafe, but I think having a 90s snack bar with Dunkaroos, Corn Nuts, Cool Ranch Doritos, Snapple, that would have been really cute to have. And plus, it would have been given us a chance to buy more food, because who doesn't love snacking when they're on the convention floor walking around trying to catch a glimpse of a Lawrence brother? And lastly, where were the books? There was no mention of Goosebumps, no mention of Babysitter's Club at all throughout the weekend. And I thought, as Bob says, that was wild. Scholastic book fairs are so ingrained in 90s kids' minds and hearts that I feel like that was a missed opportunity. They could have set up, or even had Scholastic sponsor a little like Scholastic book fair pop-up. Have not only Babysitter's Club and Goosebumps and I Spy books, they could also had newer books, because there were a lot of people my age there with their own kids. And we should always inspire kids to read and get into books, be excited for that. That would have been a cute thing for parents and kids to share, and even people like me who don't have kids to go and buy some little erasers or bookmarks, or have the boys buy that fucking Camaro poster, you know the one, or Lamborghini. So yeah, there was just some attractions, some ideas, 90s Con. If you want any more help, contact me. So yes, I really want them to do the boy band room next time. I think that would be so fun. Which, speaking of boy bands, that was my favorite panel of the whole weekend. I didn't see many. I skipped the Mrs. Doubtfire and the Fuller House one, or Full House, because I just didn't want to be sad. I felt like they were going to mention Robin Williams and Bob Saget, and I was like, my heart's not ready. My heart can't deal. So I skipped those, unfortunately. But I did go to a couple of them. The boy band one with Nick, AJ, and Joey Fatone, as well as TLC. They were there as well. Was amazing. I think AJ sort of took control of the panel, which was good. And at the end, Nick Carter suggested that they all sing Waterfalls by TLC, and that was a moment. But like I said, AJ kind of took over the panel, which I thought was good, because as great as Rin Stevens was doing the hosting duties, I felt like there could have been more of a variety in the hosting, because when you put different people in that position, you get different perspectives. Like if you've ever been to Paley Fest in LA, and they have all the different, TV show casts come, they do have a variety of hosts. I think that you can always tell when someone's like super into it. Like American Horror Story always has the same guy doing it because he is in it to win it. And when they had the superhero shows from the CW, Kevin Smith did it, and you could tell he's so passionate. These people, when they come through, it's the passion. And while Ren Stevens was definitely passionate about the 90s, I think every panel should have had someone different because there's so many amazing podcast hosts, hint, hint, wink, wink, and journalists and even old school TV personalities. I think they could have gotten to kind of shake things up. I would have loved to see someone like Dave Holmes or Ananda Lewis come through for that boy band TLC panel, because they're not just people that lived through it with them on MTV and TRL, but it would have been really awesome to geek out on the old school MTV VJs. I know I can't be the only one that would have been like flipping out to see Dave Holmes. I definitely would have took my book of it that he did and had him sign it. Next time, get more than one host. Shake things up. Sticking with the panels, variety and host isn't the only thing. I wish they would have done different types of panels, not just have cast come out and talk, because I feel like when they get together, you can kind of run on the same questions. And keep in mind, this is a 90s con, so these people have been doing interviews about the shows, about themselves for over 20 years. And I think that can be a little daunting for them to just sit there and be like, yeah, this is how the show came to be. This is my favorite episode, yada, yada, yada. Some panel ideas for the future, or that they even could have done, for you had people like Melissa Joan Hart, you had Andre and Candace from Full House, Laura Winslow was there. You could have had like women of TGIF, or even with Nev Campbell and Lacey Chabert there, you could have had this kind of women of the 90s, what it was like to be a young female actor back then. Some of the things they went through, is I know being a woman in Hollywood has always been hard, but what was it like to be a young woman in Hollywood, especially in the 90s when there wasn't as much power on their end? Another panel idea, God, you had some really hot guys from the 90s. The Lawrence brothers, boy band members, Scott Wolf. Why not have this kind of Tiger Beat throwback heartthrobs of the 90s panel where they talked about those cheesy ass photo shoots for teen magazines and sort of what it was like to be on a pedestal back then versus how they deal with it now, how they think having social media back then at the height of the pandemonium, how they would have dealt with all that. People sliding into their DMs, the pressure that social media puts on celebrities today. If they're happy, they kind of don't have to deal with that as much. Things like that. Just shake up those panels with the hosts, with the topics. Would have been awesome. They did throw something different into the mix. They did this sort of, I'll say it loosely, it was a loosely trivia. When I hear trivia, I think of just questions that are about the 90s, not necessarily acting things out or miming things like that. But they have these two young girls that do a game called The Bundle, and the cast of Sabrina the Teenage Witch played against the cast of Boy Meets World. They played the bundle game, and it was a little chaotic at times. I feel like they didn't go over the rules enough. The cast was kind of like, I don't know why I'm here. I wish there was a little more organization on that, but it was fun to watch. I think Caroline Ray from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, who played Aunt Hilda, every time she was involved in something, it was hilarious. She did the cosplay contest, she did this trivia, obviously did the Sabrina panel, and she always owns it. Again, shake up those panels. Maybe have some stand-up comedians who love the 90s come through, because they're always going to make you laugh. But the last thing, I know I said a lot of suggestions. I have like a little suggestion box, but one thing I would not change about 90s Con is the location. Not only selfishly because I live on the East Coast, but because when you go to bigger markets, like I started this off, I think the fans don't become the focus. You have to definitely get your money's worth when you are renting a convention center in LA or New York City. So something more smaller like Hartford or Richmond, Virginia, somewhere tiny, maybe even do it in like fucking Oklahoma. You get to be more real. You don't have to be like, look at this, Marvel, Disney. You get to really focus on the fans. And in LA, I think the fans might, in New York, the fans kind of be like, look at me, instead of look at the experience. Plus, in those bigger markets, you know how long the line would have been to get a picture on that SNICK couch? Oh my God, it would have been like standing there for a fucking hour. In Hartford, 2 seconds. You're in, you're out. The Spice Girl exhibit would have been flocked. There would have been just too many selfies going on. So I think keeping it in smaller markets, definitely the way to go. Helps keep the focus on the fans. So yeah, 90s Prom was great. I would maybe go again if the suggestion box was taken a little seriously, had more vendors, more variety in the panels, as well as the hosts in the panels. And they kept it in these like smaller to medium markets where you don't have to stress as much that the crowds are going to be overwhelming, that you're going to be waiting for hours and hours just to have like a photo op or something like that. So yeah. So thank you for listening. And I hope the 90s Con people listen to this and kind of take my suggestions. And if they want any help planning 2023, my inbox is always open. And as I always say, until next time, keep crushing it.